All right, guys. Here's what we're gonna do. Somebody sent me Mr. Crowley's video called "Mr. Swirl," the internet's most disturbed user. Personally, I would have thought it's Colleen Ballinger. Colleen? Somebody told me it was Colleen. Because that was the last segment, but you wouldn't know that if you're watching this video. So let's get it going. And we're playing it while we play Diablo 4, which is going to make it extra spooky because there are gothic horror themes in Diablo 4 that make me spooked. I get scared.
Pattaya, Thailand.
Okay.
Two young brothers enter a local internet cafe, take their seats, and begin playing their favorite games. One boy was 13, and the other just 8. And together, they sat there and played the way they always did, getting lost in their screens, wasting the day away.
What were they playing? They got any good games on their phone?
Until one of the boys felt a tap on his shoulder.
Okay.
Standing there beside them was a similarly aged child, a stranger to the boys, but a friendly one who strikes up a conversation and eventually poses an offer. According to the unnamed child, he had a friend who lived close by that owned a special computer, one far better than the device they were currently using.
VR headset. Yep, pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool.
That had any game you could ever dream of playing.
Whoa.
He was headed to that friend's home right now, but he didn't want to go alone. It was an offer that the boys just couldn't refuse, and considering the child was clearly around their age, they saw no red flags and agreed to go with him.
What the hell?
Following the boy to a nearby apartment building, then up 7 flights of stairs, and into a dark room. But waiting for them inside that room wasn't some sort of supercharged computer, and it surely wasn't a friend of the boys. And instead, it was a monster in every sense of the word. A depraved soul who, years down the line, would go on to become one of the most notorious predators ever to walk this earth. And
What? How did this happen so quickly? We just started the video. I'm already upset. What's happening here? Oh my god. How terrible. So this guy was using another kid to facilitate some inappropriate actions. Right at the beginning of the video, I can't be super explicit, but Jesus Christ.
Entity known only at the time as Mr. Swirl. And these children had just fallen into his trap.
Pedophile who has been the subject of a worldwide manhunt.
Is now at the heart of a global manhunt.
Repeated abuse of a dozen or more underage computer software to obscure his own face in the picture.
Jesus Christ. I was honestly hoping this was just going to be about ice cream. Because, that's what I would think. Mr. Swirl, like ice cream,
Hey guys, I just wanted to announce that I'm currently working on 2 collaborative projects with my good friend Nexbo, aka Ryan. Together we made this channel called Nick and Ryan, where we travel to some of the most haunted locations in the United States to try and see if we can go from being skeptics to believers, which we're already 3 episodes in and things have gone completely off the rails, but I can honestly say it's some of the most fun I've ever had creating. So hopefully it'll be just as fun for you guys as well, and a nice break from this disturbing content over here. And also we've been working on an ARG/clothing line called Liminal Land, which has been an amazing passion project.
Yeah, I gotta work on a clothing line. That's a good idea. I said that for a couple months now.
Both of us, and we're already cultivating such a unique and creative fan base over there, which has been super cool and super inspiring. So I'll leave a link below both to liminalland.net as well as the new Nick and Ryan channel. I would love it if you went and gave both of them a try, but if not, absolutely no worries, because this channel is not going anywhere. Okay, back to the disturbing video.
I'm already disturbed.
It's unclear if they knew what they were looking for, or if they had just happened upon it by pure chance. But in 2004, German police entered a long-forgotten storage unit, where beneath the piles of junk and old appliances, they'd unearth a single hard drive. Once plugged into the computer, the device revealed hundreds of images, some showing various locations, breathtaking scenery, delicious meals, and CP.
Oh, about to say. Well, I was gonna comment about this.
Some showing various locations, breathtaking scenery, delicious.
That's a delicious meal. That looks ridiculous. That looks disgusting. That looks like a plant on top of some like old fucking grilled mushrooms. Ew.
Meals and CP.
Yikers.
The images showed scenes of depraved sexual abuse being done to individuals who were clearly minors, with this abuse being far worse than you'd ever imagine. And it wasn't just one child either, as across that hard drive seemed to be evidence of multiple separate instances of abuse, including images of 3 young boys taken in a dark apartment building. The discovery was horrid, though sadly all in a day's work for investigators who encountered things of this nature on a daily basis, and it's a discovery that likely would have never been discussed by the media after that one.
That's pretty, just think of, I mean, like, what happened to the kids is obviously horrible, but just think about, like, that's your job. Imagine it was your job to have to sift through this type of material every single day. That has to destroy you. Like, there's no way that you don't come out of that, like, there's no way that you come out of that without like having such a significantly negative like experiences in general. That's fucking terrible.
Day had it not been for one unusual detail. Typically, in cases involving CP, those taking the photographs and performing the actual abuse will almost always go out of their way to ensure that they aren't shown on camera. That way, if authorities should stumble upon it, they would essentially be unidentifiable.
Yeah.
However, the dozens of photos found on this particular hard drive were different. Because rather than hiding just out of frame like all the other predators seemed to do, the man behind these images had instead gone out of his way to ensure he was featured within them, shamelessly inserting himself into every single picture, even posing for them, before, during, and after he had changed the lives of these kids forever. And although his entire body was shown in these photographs, the only...
Is this kind of content okay? You know, like, I'm just like, what does this do to us? Like, consuming this. Does this sensationalize and almost trivialize a really horrible situation? Does this feed into our everyday anxieties? Or is this some kind of an education on, like, the worst horrors of the world? You know what I mean? I just, what's, like, the ethical ramifications of consuming this stuff? I'm not calling it probably bad at all. I'm just, like, I wonder, because this is interesting. I criticize, what is it called? I forget what the content's called, but I tend to criticize like those conspiracy theory-esque, like Criminal Minds type content, because I think that they give people a little bit of brain rot, and they force people to look at things through like a bizarre conspiratorial filter. But then I look at this, I'm like, damn, is this good for anyone's mental health? You know, something.
The only thing hiding his identity was the addition of a single effect, one that swirled the man's face into a distorted, pixelated mess, making him completely unrecognizable, and leaving his face to look
the first
like
TikTok
this.
face changer. Ew, what the fuck?
There was something so disturbingly arrogant
stop showing
about
it to me.
A man
Fuck.
posing with his victims while destroying their lives, hiding behind only a single swirl of color, almost as if he was taunting any investigators who might eventually find these images. And given the clear indications that this man was obviously a serial abuser, and likely still out there offending, tracking this anonymous figure down became priority one for law enforcement in the area. And it's there that he would be given his nickname, Mr. Swirl. And with the swirl being the only thing standing in the way of investigators getting to see his face, most would have assumed that identifying him would be a walk in the park. However, this was far from the case. As the images began to be dissected, it quickly became apparent that deciphering the sensor was going to be far more difficult than initially thought, and potentially even impossible, as the pixels had been scrambled in such a unique way that there wasn't any known method to unscramble it. And quickly, what should have been their most valuable clue, the one that stood so tantalizingly close, became a lost cause, leaving investigators at their first dead end. Realizing that things were about to get much more difficult, the German police enlisted the help of an agency known as Interpol, an international crime-stopping organization with a special unit dedicated to resolving crimes against children. Interpol immediately began to get to work, attempting to decipher the photos in a different way, this time by using context clues in the pictures to track down where exactly they were taken, which in turn could tell them where this man was from and where the abuse was taking place. But this too unearthed yet another problem. The first batch of images was discovered to have come from Cambodia, but the next showed evidence that the man was in Vietnam, and then entirely...
Wait, so what's the implication here, though? Is it that, like, this guy is a German citizen that went to, like, other countries, it seems like Asian countries, to, like, molest and abuse kids? I mean, that's entirely possible. Because didn't they find it in some kind of a German storage unit? Jesus Christ.
Thailand, and potentially even South Korea as well. Rather than gaining clarity, the locations of these images instead made the search even wider, as the man was seemingly traveling from country to country, committing his crimes and then fleeing, thus never staying long enough for law enforcement to catch up with him, making it completely unclear to investigators where he was actually from. And given just how vast his travels were, at this point, it was realized that Mr. Swirl could be anywhere, a moving target, so to speak, and an active one as well. During the investigation, which would later be dubbed Operation Vico, in reference to Vietnam and Cambodia, which seemed to be the main sites of his abuse, investigators made a disturbing discovery: that Mr. Swirl's photographs were not exclusive to just that hard drive, as photo after photo began to appear on various online forums, with all of them featuring that disturbed, swirling face. The images were shared across the web seemingly straight from the man himself, and were sent out to various predatory groups that were filled with individuals just as sick as he was. Within these groups, it was considered a badge of honor to show your body and face within the content you made, thus leading to the sender becoming well respected among his peers, which showed us two things. One, that this was likely the reason why Mr. Swirl inserted himself in these photos.
Bro, what makes you this way? Like, what makes you the kind of person that gets off to this? This is insane to me. This is wild. I don't get it. I mean, Jesus Christ. It's just so horrific. Like, what makes you so okay with abusing somebody? Like, it's not, it goes beyond having like an attraction and go to a point where you're like legitimately, it seems like abusing people and then bragging about it. Because, I mean, that's what it is, right? Putting your face in there is bragging about it. It's like, haha, fuck you, you can't catch me anyway, kind of a thing. So fucked up, man. Terrible stuff.
As it had led to him becoming a beloved member of their twisted community, in turn granting him access to all the CP he could want. And 2, that the images found on the hard drive did not account for his whole body of work, as in these chat rooms and forums, police would find far more photos featuring their suspect, raising the total from a few dozen to nearly 300. By this point, Mr. Swirl had been untraceable. Authorities were essentially searching for a ghost, and though these new images must have felt like a gut punch at first, they would eventually prove to be integral to their investigation, as for the first time in their hunt, Mr. Swirl had made a key error.
Oh shit. Alright, Mr. Swirl, we're getting you. We're gonna
Within these
torture you to
postings,
death.
Mr. Swirl had forgotten to hide his IP address, in turn revealing the general area in which they had been sent, with the location being Vancouver, Canada. This break revealed the key detail that he had some sort of tie to Vancouver, and that he was likely a sex tourist, someone who travels to countries that have loose laws around their age of consent in order to be able to abuse children without any repercussions, with Mr. Swirl clearly doing the same thing, visiting multiple countries in Asia.
Sounds like Bobby Lee, am I right? Jesus.
Making his material, coming home, and then sharing it with his friends. It certainly didn't solve the case, but it was finally a step in the right direction, and unbeknownst to the team working on Operation Vico, they were quickly approaching an even bigger revelation. As authorities were working hard on pinning down Mr. Swirl's location, some members of the team held on hope that the images themselves could still be unscrambled, and upon digging a bit deeper, one member of the team would actually recognize the swirl as having come from a fairly standard editing program, which revealed something. The swirl effect was—
Bro, come on. I don't mean to laugh, but it turns out that this was just part of a really basic editing program and they couldn't figure this out for how long? Are we, like, what, like, how? Yeah, it was from Adobe Photoshop. Oh my god, what is that? That's the problem with boomers. All right, that's why you need to be fired when you're 50. I'm just kidding, that's terrible. But holy fuck. Crazy.
Wasn't like a typical sensor or blur. Those effects completely mask or even remove the pixels from the actual photograph, making them nearly impossible to decipher. But this effect did neither of those things, and instead it simply rearranged the pixels of the man's face into a swirling pattern, meaning that this image still contained all of its original pixels, and Mr. Swirl's face was somewhere in this picture. They just had to piece it together. And so, in what must have felt like a Hail Mary at the time, an investigator put one of the images into that very same editing software, then clicked that very same swirl effect, and simply reversed it. Which in turn—
I'm sorry. If this worked, I mean, think about how many governmental resources we used because somebody didn't know, like, fucking Adobe After Effects. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't, I don't know, call an expert or something. Yeah, you just got to put it in here. Like someone's fucking, it sounds like someone's kid had to figure it out. Like, yeah, my son told me that this is just a filter. This is a filter in Vegas Pro.
Led to this.
Don't show me the picture of the guy. No! Dude, I don't want to see it. Bro, this is fucking terrifying me. Jesus Christ.
In an investigation that started all the way back in 2004, finally, Mr. Swirl's face was revealed with a single click, a whole 3 years later, confirming not only what the man looked like, but also that it was truly just one man behind the swirl. And now, all they had to do was find him. Interpol first started their search by sending this man's image to every single police station the network had access to, asking if anyone across the world had a criminal in their database who might match this photo, but this attempt would fall flat, indicating that whoever this man was, he likely had no prior criminal record. Time was clearly of the essence, and they knew that with every waking moment, Mr. Swirl could be adding to his list of growing victims. And wanting to act fast, Interpol made a fairly unprecedented decision. They reached out to every single major news outlet across the world and asked them to show this man's face on their broadcast to help bring this predator to justice. Additionally, the images of Mr. Swirl—
Whoa, it sounds like they created doxing, am I right, guys? But yeah, good. That's a good idea to do. Fuck him. This guy's a disturbing fuck. I gotta... It's fucking terrible.
Swirl's face were also plastered in all corners of the internet, and within just one day, the story was quite literally everywhere. What started as a small search for an anonymous man had become an international manhunt overnight, and within just hours, Mr. Swirl would be anonymous no more.
Good.
Top news story this hour. The worldwide search for a suspected pedophile is concentrated in Thailand this morning. We now know the suspect is a Canadian. The CBC's Michael McAuliffe reports
they found it
from
in
Bangkok.
Germany.
This morning, Interpol announced they now believe they know who the man is. He's been identified as a Canadian. 32-year-old Christopher Paul Neal.
I knew they weren't nice.
Christopher Paul Neal. Not only did Neal's face and body match perfectly with Mr. Swirl, but he also had grown up just outside of Vancouver where the IP was tracked to. And he had moved from country to country across Asia in recent years, countries like Cambodia, Vietnam, and Thailand. The resemblance was so undeniable that even one of his own family members...
See, that's why I'm not going to go. That's why I would never go to Thailand. I would go to Japan, though, because I want to go to every Disney in the world. So I'm a Disney adult. Is that a red flag? Some would say it is, but I wouldn't.
Came forward to help identify him. Christopher Neal was in fact Mr. Swirl, a discovery that came with some disturbing revelations. As it turns out, Christopher Neal was actually working as a children's English teacher, a job he had held in each of the countries he was discovered to have abused young boys in, making it likely that he used this position of power to lure in children from his classes to eventually abuse them and share their photos online. Along with this, it was also revealed that he had used his relationships with young boys to help lure in other children for him to assault, as looking back on the story that started this video, he had recruited a clueless child he knew to lure those two brothers back to his apartment.
Damn.
This discovery also shined a spotlight on his social media pages, and specifically his MySpace page, where he chillingly wrote, "Loving Asia, will I ever come back?" while in the midst of his abuse spree. But for me, one of the most shocking revelations was that those images that he had posted during the investigation weren't actually posted to his computer.
Wait, so when he moved there, sorry if I misheard something, was he acting as like a teacher in those countries or something? Is that what was happening? Because I think it's really easy to become like an English teacher in a lot of these in a lot of other countries. You don't even really have to speak their language. You just kind of have to get like a certificate or something very minor. It's nothing crazy. Well, yeah, very minor, huh? It's nothing. It's pretty crazy. So is that what he would do? He would just go around and teach quote unquote children stuff, and then use that to bankroll his fucking disgusting habits? Because that's fucking wild.
At some point in the early 2000s, Neal had stopped home for a brief vacation to visit his family, and while there, he decided to upload all of his CP to his internet friends. But rather than using his personal device or a public computer, he instead broke into his own brother's laptop and uploaded his content there. That way, the images would be tracked to his brother and not him, which explained why he never bothered to hide his IP address.
What the fuck? Wait, so was he almost trying to get his brother framed then? Wow. I mean, I could deal with the pedophilia, but you're gonna betray your own brother? I'm just kidding. That's disgusting. But Jesus Christ, what the fuck? Why would it go that far? Why? What a fucking weird guy.
The more they learned, the more disturbed the story became, as even at the time they discovered his identity, it was revealed that he had currently been working in South Korea as a teacher.
Yeah.
But when the officers arrived to arrest the man, he was already long gone. Having certainly seen his face all over the news, Christopher made the decision to flee the country, being spotted in this image captured at an airport in Thailand, as he had flown to the country likely in an attempt to find refuge. Throughout the following days and weeks, his likeness would turn up time and time again in the country, indicating that he was somewhere in Thailand hiding out, and having cornered him in the region, it wouldn't take long for police to knock on the door of an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere, in which Christopher Neal happened to be hiding, bringing the multi-year search for Mr. Swirl to an end.
Ah, yeah, maybe his brother ate his Oreos when he was a kid. Well, now that you... Bro, like, I have to break it up with, like, a stupid laugh or something, because this shit's horrible, man. This shit fucks me up. This is terrible stuff. Jesus Christ.
Following his arrest by Thai police, Neal would be charged for his assault on those 3 young boys from the internet cafe, as it was the only crime they could prove had taken place in their country, and with it carried a prison sentence of 5 years.
Wow.
Admittedly, the sentencing was light, but the plan was to have Neal turned over to Canadian authorities after he did his time in Thailand, where they would also prosecute him all over again, with the hope being that they could do the same thing with countries like Cambodia and Vietnam, and essentially force him to live out his life in prison. However, when the sentence was completed in 2012, and Christopher was deported back to Canada, the shocking decision was made to allow Christopher Neal to walk free.
What? Who's the fucking idiot that decided that?
When Neal was detained in Canada, authorities let him walk under the condition that he would never own a device that connected to the internet again, as well as the agreement.
What? What the fuck? What? What do you mean? Yeah, you just can't have a phone, but you raped a kid. Hundreds of them, actually. But, you know, just don't do it again. What are you talking about? Like, I don't think you can you can't reform that. You can't reform somebody who does something like that to somebody. There's no way. What the fuck?
Meant that he would stay away from parks, schools, and also register as a sex offender. I can't for the life of me understand why this decision was made, but from what I could gather, it seemed to center around the fact that his crimes were international, and that none of his other victims had actually come forward, meaning the other countries they had hoped to prosecute never actually bothered to pursue it. And because his crimes didn't happen on Canadian soil, not much could really be done, legally speaking. And so in the end...
So put him in a really dangerous prison or something. You know what I mean? Let God finish it.
And the hunt for Mr. Swirl ended up lasting almost as long as the sentence he served. And even after everything this man did, he was let loose and allowed to assimilate back into society.
What?
But this isn't where our story ends. Not even a full year later in 2013, it would be uncovered that Christopher Neal had somehow managed to purchase a computer, and also connected to the internet.
Somehow? Yeah, well, it didn't seem like they put, yeah, you just can't own like a laptop, all right? Don't do that. Oh, yeah, of course. What's happening here? How fucking inept can you be? That's wild.
Clear violation of his conditions. And though he claimed it was just for writing a book about his life experiences, when investigators seized the device, they would, unsurprisingly, find even more CP.
Oh, wow.
25 images to be exact, including 2 with his signature swirling face. As it turns out, Christopher had been using the device to contact his fellow pedophile friends, where he would even message one of his disturbed friends right after his release, saying, "The swirl liveth still," proving without a shadow of a doubt that he was remorseless about his crimes, and took pride in his new nickname. And somehow, the discovery got even worse from there, as it was revealed that a friend of his had shown him how to access the deep web, and how to share these photographs in practically an untraceable way, thus allowing him to continue being active in these predatory groups, no matter what restrictions.
Hey, police, you guys did a good job. You guys did an excellent job catching this guy. And then, because here's the problem. Here's one of the biggest issues, is that when something like anything like this happens, you get caught and you get away with it, you just learn how to do it better. You know, that's usually what happens. So this guy just learned how to avoid police officers better when he was abusing children, and then he went and did it again. I don't even know how he got caught this time. Good that he got caught, but I mean that's all that happens. That's all we did here. We just gave him the ability, like, oh, here's what you look for. Here's what you got to look for when you're talking to kids. Oh, yeah, thanks for the advice. I really appreciate that. That's pretty much all that's happened here. Fucking wild.
Were placed on him.
Jesus.
After Canadian police made this discovery, Christopher would yet again be arrested, and this time they had the chance to really send a message and put him away forever, as clearly letting him walk away the first time was a mistake, as he wasn't reformed even in the slightest. And so, to make up for this, the judge would give Christopher Neal the whopping sentence of just 5.5 years, with time served, meaning that he would only end up in jail for a little over 14 months.
What?
The prosecution praised the sentence as a win, and Christopher vowed to change his ways.
What? What are you talking? Wait, what just happened? 14 months? What? Dude, what are we talking about here? Why? What the fuck? There's no way that this is real.
But it just doesn't sit right that as of 2016, Mr. Swirl, the man responsible for dozens and dozens of instances of extreme child abuse, which by the way are just the ones that we know of, is a free man, now living in...
I guess the judge was a fan of his work or something, because that's fucking wild to me. There's no way that this happened.
Normal life in Vancouver. And worst of all, he now has access to share this material through untraceable avenues, meaning that there is a good chance that he could still be out there obtaining, sharing, and who knows, maybe even producing his content. The case of Mr. Swirl is such a frustrating one. For once, a case of this nature gained worldwide attention and was pursued by the full extent of the law, with the folks over at Interpol doing a fantastic job with the case, only for it all to be deflated once he was finally captured. And just knowing that he's out there living a normal life after all this.
Yeah, imagine being the people who caught him, and you're like, oh, we got this disgusting sick fuck. They put him away for life. Oh, 14 months. Oh, incredible. Like, that's incredible stuff. Really good stuff, guys. Justice system, baby. A lot of empathy for people who are molesting kids for some reason. I wonder where all the conspiracy theories come from. Crazy.
Lives that he's forever affected makes this one of the most disheartening cases.
Tom C. super chatted $1.99. Judge just wanted the evidence for himself.
I didn't say it.
To date.
Wow. Horrible stuff, man. That's crazy.